Hello and welcome to the Heat Check Podcast, Miami Herald's Miami Heat Podcast. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, as always, on the other line. He's kind of morally opposed to playing games anyway. It's Anthony Chiang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, it's almost midnight on the
Yeah,
East Coast. You're sitting deep inside Miami-Dade Arena. I am sitting in my home office, the comfy confines. But it was pretty important basketball game for the Heat tonight, so we decided to wait and record a chunk of this episode live post game. We had a pre-recorded segment that held up about Victor Oladipo and the Heat's rotation. That'll be the second half of this episode. But one of the biggest games of the Heat season, one of the bigger wins of this Heat season. Miami beats New York, moves into a tie. On percentage points, they're a little bit behind Brooklyn. They also don't have the tiebreaker with Brooklyn, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But into a tie for all intents and purposes for the number 6 seed, chance to move out of the play-in game. But above all else, they just played, at least offensively. I'm sure we'll talk about not necessarily their best defensive performance, but they're winning with offense all of a sudden. Definitely one of their better offensive performances of the season. What do you make of that win from the Heat tonight?
Jimmy Butler is very, very good.
Yeah, you just tweeted a stat while we were waiting to get started recording here that I think kind of sums up the Heat right now, basically.
He's averaging 26.3 points a game on 60.5% shooting from the field since the break. It's kind of amazing that the Heat are actually just 8-7 since the break.
I know.
Always played, but that just kind of shows he hasn't had a lot of help in a lot of those games. But this game was not that. He got a lot of help. Season best in three-point shooting percentage. We've talked about it all year. The three-point shooting has been a weakness for this team. They shot 57% from three. Just a really good offensive performance. One of their top 5, I think, offensive ratings of the season. Defensively, like you said, it wasn't great. New York, got 120 points, shot 40% three. But offensively, all of a sudden, and I was talking about this with some media members after the game, it's like the identity of this team flipped all of a sudden. Like before, it was the top 5 defense, and they were winning games 90-87, and now they beat the Knicks 127-120, and all of a sudden their offense is humming. So obviously a really, really big win. Not only do you move percentage points away from Brooklyn, they could move into sole possession of 6th place if Brooklyn loses to Cleveland on Thursday night, which is totally possible. And the Heat face Brooklyn again on Saturday, so they could really go up by pretty much a game and a half.
By the end of Saturday, they could be in control of their own destiny if a couple things break right, and obviously they beat Brooklyn this weekend. So, even when we recorded yesterday, I don't remember if we went deep into it, but just our kind of skepticism about them getting out of the play-in. But all of a sudden, I don't know what the math would say in terms of are they the favorites right now to get the 6th seed, but by the end of the weekend, they definitely can be, which is very different than we thought. I mean, even last week when we talked, four-game losing streak from Brooklyn, it changed a lot for Miami, and impossible not to feel great, not to feel good about a win like the one they had tonight, because to me, obviously Jimmy Butler, that's where it starts, and he scores 35 points, 9 assists, 4 steals, the full Jimmy Butler experience. But it's hard to make that the story on every night when that is the story every night, right? The story tonight is everything else. They got 14 points from Tyler Hero in the 4th quarter. Gabe and Kyle Lowry combining for 35 points, and that point guard 2-headed monster continues to be really good for this team. And you mentioned the 3-point shooting. What was the final? I don't have the box score in front of me. 16-28. Yeah, they're up to now 39.9% from 3-point range in their last 11 games. So they kind of rolling from deep right now.
Progression to the mean.
Yeah. I mean, that's we wondered all year if that was going to happen, and it's definitely happening right now a little bit.
Yeah, we've been waiting for it, and it's coming obviously at a really good time. And you talk about the standings, and it's not only the 6th spot, right? They beat the Knicks, and now they're 2 games behind.
Yeah.
5th spot. I mean, now the 5th is within reach.
It's in play, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they face New York again next week in New York on Wednesday, so they still can move even closer with a head-to-head matchup against them. And if they win that one, they'll probably get the tiebreaker. So
because would the tiebreaker be division? Because the Heat win the division then? Because they split the season series and then
yeah. So suddenly, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but suddenly the 5th spot is in play.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Okay, Brooklyn. We don't know what Heat team we're gonna get from night to night.
Right. I mean, I'd say that's the problem. We'll talk about that after, but go ahead.
But Brooklyn's schedule after they face Cleveland on Thursday, Miami on Saturday. But after that, it's Orlando, Houston, Atlanta, Utah, Minnesota, Detroit, Orlando, and Philly. And Philly's the last game, so who even knows if probably not many guys will play for Philly that night. Depends on where they are in the playoff race. But the point is, like, Brooklyn's schedule gets soft after this. And the Heat, after this homestand, they go back-to-back on the road with Toronto and New York, two teams battling for playoff seeds. They come back home and face Dallas, another team fighting for their playoff lives and, where they're going to end up in the West. They don't really have many easy games other than like a Detroit, I guess, in a couple weeks. Brooklyn's schedule is a lot easier. So it's really important that the Heat win that game on Saturday, because if they don't, it's despite all the good work that you're doing right now, it's going to be tough just because of the way things set up.
Yeah, it's obviously there's too many games for anything to be like a literal must win right now, but that's about as close as you get to one, given all the circumstances that you just laid out. The problem, as you mentioned, of course, is they could easily win that game, go ahead, and Brooklyn. I think we talk about regression. With the Heat 3-point shooting, I think maybe we're seeing some regression from the Nets, who obviously started hot after they traded Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and in a way that is proven to be unsustainable. So even though their schedule is soft, as you mentioned, they're not as good right now as their record indicates. Like they're a team that could easily lose to Orlando, who's feisty, to Minnesota. Anthony Edwards is going to be back probably here at some point, right? Those aren't like automatic wins, just like they wouldn't be for the Heat. And of course, that's the problem, is the Heat could easily win this weekend, get the help they kind of need from the teams playing Brooklyn down the stretch. Brooklyn could go 500 the rest of the way or whatever, and it still might not matter because the Heat could easily, as you said, what's their record since the All-Star break? 8-7, 9.
8-7.
It's not like they're playing super well. Yeah, they got a really good win tonight. Yeah, they played well lately, but like they've had, if you've gone 8-7 of your last couple and you're 4 of your last 5, that means you were my math is bad, but not very good. 4 and 6 before that. So like they're playing better right now, but we've seen that a bunch of times for the Heat, and it could easily flip back the other way.
I think the thing that should give Heat fans the most hope is just, I know we keep coming back to it, but Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I mean he's
been arguably the best player in the NBA since the All-Star break. I mean, it's just been incredible what he's doing offensively, the efficiency, defensively, just with the steals. Just he's impacting the game in so many different ways, and they're just running everything. Like, it's just different. It's a different Jimmy.
Yeah. And with 10 games left or whatever it is now, like it's there's no more rest days, right? Like there's no more load management. Like he
hasn't missed a game since the break.
Yeah, it's and it's not just that. It's not managing. How many like Jimmy Butler games do we see where he like takes like 4 shots in the first 3 quarters or whatever? Like that's not it anymore. It's the full Jimmy Butler experience. It's the playoff Jimmy experience. And if the 3-point shooting, like I said, we're over 10 games now where that 3-point shooting is looking a lot more like it did last year than it did did for the first 3 quarters of this season. So like there's a couple signs that are definitely positive for this Heat team.
I put aside my takeaways today that they had. I'm trying to find it. He shot 40% or better from 3-point range, 7 times in 59 games before the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it 7 times in 15 games since the break.
Yeah, and I think gone over 50% twice. In this last stretch here too. So
that's made. Imagine if they would have like carried over the defense in the first half of the season to now. I mean, they would be even better. But offensively, it's amazing kind of how much things have turned around for them, and it's amazing what a few extra made shots will do. We've said it all year. Like if they just shot league average from 3,
it would have been a totally different story. Yeah,
fighting for a top 3, top 4 seed right now, no doubt. But good thing for them. It's late, but it's coming at the right time right now where they're trying to win the play-in.
Yeah, it's late, and we thought maybe it was going to be too late. It's turning out to not be too late. So if they can, as we said, build off of what we saw tonight, what we've seen over the last, couple games offensively. The defense, you want to just quickly touch on that? To me, it's just like a reminder that like everyone plays to the like pace of the game, right? Like you can stress like you want to have great offense and good defense, but for the most part, like games that are low scoring, you lock it on defense. Games that are high scoring, it's hard to keep that focus from possession to possession. And the Knicks are a good offensive. Like they've got the way that Jalen Brunson has played. Certainly got weapons on offense.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks I think entered with the 5th best offense in the NBA.
Yeah,
efficiency. So this is a really, really good offense. Yes, the defensive slippage has been a talking point lately, especially since the break. Last 10 games, they have the 18th best defensive rating, so below average. They have the 4th best offense, but it's just again, this season has just been bizarre. In so many different ways, and that's just one of them. What's the identity of this team? I don't know.
It's Jimmy Butler, right? That's the one identity, and it's what he does on both ends of the floor, right? Because, the turnover creation, that's like Jimmy's strong suit defensively. That's kind of been this team's strong suit defensively. Even tonight, again, as I said, on a night where the defense gave up 120 points, he had 4 steals. Like the identity is him on both ends of the floor. I think our new crusade here needs to be. We've talked all about these clutch games all year, right, Anthony? You've been Captain Clutch. It's the first year of the Jerry West Award, right? Is Jimmy Butler? I mean, sounds like it's going to basically between him and De'Aaron Fox, but Jimmy's making a push here.
Yeah,
wouldn't it just be so fitting that for this season it's been all about the clutch games for Jimmy Butler to win the inaugural clutch trophy?
He should definitely be in the running. There's no doubt. I mean, he definitely played more clutch games than any other team. They've had success in the clutch.
Like record numbers of clutch games and 5-point games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the record for clutch games is 58. They're at 52 now, I believe, after tonight. But they could get. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it that they'll have 6 more clutch games.
Yeah, they already have the record for most 5-point wins by 5 points or fewer.
They're 2 away from tying the all-time record for just games in general by 5 points or less. So it's just been a historic season as far as close games for the Heat. So Jimmy Butler should definitely be in the running, but De'Aaron Fox has been.
Yeah, his clutch numbers are like insane.
Yeah, he's shooting 53% from the field in the clutch. I'm looking at it right now. That's just crazy. So, and especially like a player of his size. So I mean, I think Jimmy will get some votes. I'm sure he should, but it seems like De'Aaron Fox is the front runner. And I mean Tyler Hero too. I mean Tyler and Jimmy.
We didn't talk much about Tyler Hero, but he was, after Jimmy, and I guess the 3-point shooting, like probably the biggest reason they won this game tonight.
It's just crazy. I mean, it happened in Detroit too. I think Tyler scored 14 of his points in the 4th quarter tonight after kind of
and he had 8 in the first 3.
Yeah, like he just really turns it on, gets more aggressive in the 4th quarter, and the Heat really needed that because the Knicks scored 34 points in the 4th. So if Tyler doesn't get hot there, they might lose this game because the defense wasn't good down the stretch. So for everything Jimmy did, Jimmy had to sit those first 6 minutes of the 4th quarter. Tyler's hot shooting kind of helped stabilize things and hold things together while Jimmy was out.
All right, Anthony. Well, I'll let you get going. You got to finish up writing. Heater off tomorrow so you can sleep in tomorrow. So it's all right. And then actually 2 days off before this Brooklyn game, which, again, as we said, will be one of the bigger games on this Heat schedule. Certainly, probably the biggest one the rest of the way here. So we'll be back next week. Obviously, we'll be back to talk about that and the sure to change postseason picture. But first, we'll have a conversation we had earlier this week about the state of the Heat rotation and Victor Oladipo. So we'll have that when we come back. Okay, we are back through the magic of technology and time travel and all that good stuff. Anthony, what a conversation we just had about Heat Knicks.
Scintillating game.
Well, we joke, but I'm sure it will be a very thrilling ending and difficult game story for Anthony to write because they all have been like that this year. We are down in the stretch run. And, this is not new for the Heat, but it is, I think, uniquely Heat in some ways that we have, like 10 games left in the season, basically. and the Heat have made a pretty big change to their rotation. And again, like, it's not unusual for the Heat, who often get to the playoffs and, change their rotation series by series. We've seen in some of these recent playoff runs, but right. Kyle Lowry gets back. Victor Oladipo, I don't think my Victor Oladipo 6th man of the year bold prediction is going to pan out here, out of the rotation. Anthony, what do you make of this move? Obviously, the Heat still really fighting for a play. It's not, they're experimenting obviously in some ways, but they're also, in really must-win situations here, trying to make up that last little gap with Brooklyn and get out of the play-in. What do you make of this rotation change, and especially coming at this point in the year?
Yeah, I think it's coming at this point of the year because they're finally healthy, right? This team has dealt with so many injuries all season. Most games missed due to injury of any team in the NBA this season. Kyle Lowry's finally back. Gabe Vincent's healthy. Victor Oladipo's healthy. Like, I don't know, even last year with all the Victor Oladipo injuries, the Kyle Lowry stuff that he missed games because of personal reasons, the Gabe Vincent stuff, whether they were all three healthy at the same time. I don't think they were. Maybe for a little small stretch, but this might be one of the first times this year where all three of those guards are healthy together.
Yeah.
And there's not room for all three. So, Eric Spoelstra had to make a decision.
Yeah, especially because, Jimmy Butler is a guard, basically.
Yeah, and you have Tyler Hero.
And Tyler Hero, obviously.
And Bam, handles a lot as well and initiates. Like, you can't only have so many ball handlers out there. So I'm not surprised that ever since Kyle Lowry came back, when the team is healthy, right, Victor Oladipo's been out of the rotation. But it is noteworthy. These are the first, we're recording this before the Knicks game. So the first 3 games the last 3 games, Oladipo's been out of the rotation twice, and those are his first 2 DNP CDs of the season.
Yeah.
So this hasn't happened to him this year yet. This is new for him, and he has been a big part of the formula, like, throughout the whole year. His defense, he's been in a lot of the fourth quarter lineups. At one point, we were thinking he might be a closer for this team, but since the All-Star break, he just hasn't been great, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
It's the combination, yes, of them getting healthy, and Kyle Lowry was not going to come back and not be in the rotation.
Yeah.
But it's the combination of them getting fully healthy, and then it basically becomes, if they're going to just play those, I guess 4 guards, because Tyler Hero is really a 4th guard, or, well, the 1st guard, and then the other 3 are like the other competing. It comes down to Gabe and Victor Oladipo, and there is a world where you could definitely see them valuing Victor Oladipo over Gabe Vincent. I mean, you think of how valuable he was in the playoff run last year with his defense, but as you mentioned, he just has not played well since the All-Star break, and they've needed Gabe's shooting threat a little bit. And again, like, it ultimately, like, it's weird that it's a battle for playing time between Gabe and Victor Oladipo, but that's what it is. And right now, Gabe Vincent just not just playing better than Victor Oladipo, but in my opinion, kind of what they need more. Unless Victor is going to, like, really turn it up a notch on defense, and the Heat are going to try to, which maybe that'll happen in the playoffs, is they'll say we're going to try to win games like 86-82, and then Victor Oladipo becomes more valuable than Gabe Vincent. But for right now in the regular season, where scoring always drops in the postseason, you need shooters on the floor. Gabe just gives them more of what they need for these last, dozen games of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? Since the break, the Heat have been outscored by 8.1 points per 100 possessions with Victor Oladipo on the court. The only players worse than that are Duncan, Omer, and Haywood, which all 3 of those guys pretty much are out of the rotation.
Yeah.
The roster's healthy. So the results have not been good with him on the court. It's not only just him, right? Like, the team has struggled since the break. It's been really up and down. But he's shooting 36% from the floor since the break. Like, it's just not been efficient. The defense, like, he's been on the court a lot because of his defense. But even the defense has been slightly worse when he's been on the court since the break. So he's not hitting shots. The defense is not significantly better when he's playing. And you need to make a decision, right, between Kyle, him, and Gabe. Like, Gabe is a starting point guard right now. Whether that sticks, we'll see, right? But right now, as Kyle Lowry kind of eases his way back in, Gabe is the starting point guard, so he's not going out of the rotation. And Kyle's been really good since he returned. He's been really, really good, of just efficient, kind of stabilizing things as a natural point guard, which I think, I know it's like a positionless era of basketball, but this team still needs that. They still need that.
Yeah, I mean, most teams still
things.
have a point guard, right? Like most of the great teams around the league, whether it is an unorthodox guy like Stephen Curry or like, a Drew Holiday, like all the great teams have point guards.
Yeah, so I just think it makes sense, but would I be surprised if another number too, by the way, that plays a role in this. He's averaging just as many turnovers as he has assists, 3 and 3.
Yeah,
it's just for a team that really needs to win the possession battle to have a chance. You can't have 35% shooting and as many turnovers as assists from a guard. It just can't happen. So I feel bad for Vic. He's been through so much, and he had stretches this year where you're like, wow, can he like get back to being one of the best players in this roster? He's had some really good moments. But it's going to be like that. I mean, he hasn't played for this long of a stretch in a long time. It's going to be an up and down battle. I think that's what we've seen this year. But I still think, like you said, last year this happened too. We fell out of the rotation for the end of the regular season. Kyle got hurt his hamstring. Victor had to step into a big role in the playoffs, and he was pretty good. So
he was probably their third best guy in the Boston series, third or fourth best guy. Yeah. He was really, really important for them.
He played a big role. So I don't think this is like 8 for him. I wouldn't be surprised if in a playoff series or down the stretch of the regular season, they need his skill set and they turn to him. It's a really good luxury to have off your bench. But right now, I think this move makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's kind of a shame. I think we've been a very pro Victor Oladipo podcast. I've got my biases as he's a fellow Montgomery County, Maryland native, technically grew up in PG, but born in Montgomery County, so we'll claim him. But I've been, obviously, I talked about him as a potential 6th man of the year candidate. I do wonder how much is just he maybe has hit a wall. Like you said, he's not played this much in a really long time. I mean, you can see it like a little bit too, where it feels like, I don't know what the numbers say exactly, but it feels like he's settling for a lot more jumpers than he was early on. Yeah. He's turning it over a lot, probably a little loose with the hand. There are a lot of the things that are piling up in the wrong direction for him. The defense too, like if those defensive numbers, like you said, the on-off suggests he has declined a little bit since the break, but a lot of that kind of suggests fatigue, right? Like you don't have your burst to get to the rim. You're not as strong going to the rim and you're turning it over and you're, a little bit a step slow on defense. Maybe just like some time off and, a little bit less or a little bit less playing time here over the next couple of weeks. We'll let him refresh and he'll have a little bit, have a little bit more burst come playoff time. But for now it's disappointing because we saw what the ceiling could be for it. I think we've seen a lot of flashes, and it would be obviously a surprise if he hits it here in the next little while. But like you said, I don't think it's it for him necessarily either, because I think we're like 7/8 of the way through the season right now, and I don't know, for like 5/8 of the season, he was like, or half the season, he was like real solid and looked like a guy who's maybe not a starter anymore, certainly not an all-star anymore, but like a guy who at points looked like a potential 6th man of the year, really, or at least a really good 7th man. Like, I don't think it's it for him. Maybe it's it for him right now this season, but I don't think we're done with the Victor Oladipo experience here in the NBA. Yeah,
and to your point about him not getting to the rim, career low 24% of his field goal attempts have come at the rim this year. So the eye test matches the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, he had, I don't know what the numbers would say the trend was. Like, he's obviously not, even when he was going well at the beginning of the year, he was definitely shooting more jumpers than like I'm used to seeing him. But yeah, over these last couple of weeks, like it's a lot of missed threes and a lot of turnovers, right? Those are the two things that like stand out and probably have Heat fans groaning a little bit when he's out on the court. Kyle Lowry, I guess we should talk a little bit about him. Maybe a month back or a couple weeks back when he was coming back from his injury, we talked about would he be willing to embrace him? Would the Heat try to kind of force him to embrace a sixth man role in a way that, we threw out a bunch of these recent great Heat sixth men, ranging from obviously Tyler Hero, who won the award, Goran Dragic, who would have definitely been a real contender that year if he had been fully healthy, even Dwayne Wade, as you mentioned. Now Kyle is kind of slotting, it's definitely reminds me a little bit of the Goran. I think Goran's probably the closest up for it. Do you think this is just like the move here? Like you said, Gabe's the guy right now, and it feels like they've hit on something to me.
Yeah, I mean, they'll say he's coming off the bench because they're trying to like
manage his minutes,
limit his minutes, and try to not play him too many for extended stretches, and just try to be careful with him. But I kind of think this just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Even if they weren't trying to limit his minutes, like we've talked about how, in that starting lineup, Kyle Lowry is very marginalized. Like he just stands there as a spot-up shooter because so many guys can handle the ball and initiate and need the ball in their hands, whether it's Tyler, Bam, or Jimmy. Like he just is a spot-up shooter. In these bench lineups, he can like run things, right? And we saw him like when this team has been shorthanded and he's been the guy, like he's looked good. So I think it makes sense. It stabilizes the bench units a little bit. I mean, it helps that he's making shots, right? I think he's like,
so that's the key thing is how many fourth quarters has he had since he's gotten back where it's been like the two or three of like the biggest shots of the game have been Kyle Lowry. So he can slot right back in with the starting lineup too, which is important, obviously, because he's going to close clearly. Yeah,
I mean, last game against Detroit, he had 25 minutes. He had 7 points on 2 field goal attempts, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 turnover. Like that's. I mean, you want more than 7 points, but that's all you need from a guy off the bench for this team. So I think he does definitely make this team better. He played all 12 minutes in that fourth quarter. So he's still going to play plenty of minutes like with Bam and Jimmy, but you're able to stagger his minutes a little bit more in this bench role. And I kind of like that for him and the team. So I still think like he's the better option than Gabe right now as his point guard. But as far as like the way it fits in lineups, it just makes sense with Kyle. Off the bench.
And it kind of helps explain why Victor is not, because like they're guys, they've got a fit in the starting lineup, and then you're going to play Kyle Lowry. Kyle said
one thing on that real quick. The first game that Kyle came back, or it might have been the second game, but it was before Victor kind of was out of the rotation. They were playing together off the bench, and Victor was the one kind of handling, initiating things, and Kyle was back into that spot up shooting role, kind of just standing there. That didn't make sense, right? Like you want Kyle without Victor,
$40 million a year or whatever.
You want the ball in Kyle's hands. So I think with taking Victor out of those bench lineups, now Kyle feels like empowered to do that. So it helps.
He has obviously said all the right things. Do you buy? Like, is he buying in? Do you get the sense that he's into this? Obviously, everyone wants to start. NBA guys, like they can deny it, but they all want to start. Right? It means something, even if closing is more important. But do you think he is buying into this role?
For now, I think. He made a comment, I think, his first game back, and he said, I know I'm the starting point guard, but I'm willing, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win games, right? So I think he still sees himself as a starting point guard for this team. Him and Gabe are close, so I think that helps.
Yeah.
But the good thing is it seems like he really is on the same page with the team, with the medical staff, the training staff. Like, they have a plan here. It's around to keep it like around 20, 21 minutes a game as for now. He missed the front end of the back-to-back in Chicago. He might miss one game on the next 2 back-to-backs. We'll see. But it does seem like they have a plan, and he seems to be bought in for now. I don't know if that means he said, I'll do this for the regular season. When the playoffs come around, I want to be the starting point guard. We'll see. And Eric Spoelstra has been really careful and really has made it a point to emphasize like he doesn't know what this is going to look like in 2 or 3 weeks. Hospital is, but I kind of believe that. I kind of think they're just kind of taking it day by day.
We've seen it. I mean, we're talking about Victor Oladipo being out of the rotation. Like, I don't think Spo saw that coming 2 weeks ago, that he was like not going to be using this guy. So there is truth to that, where Spo really does kind of go with the flow. But I think I would guess they're going to do this for the rest of regular. I mean, maybe if they run into a 2 or 3 game losing streak at some point here, then they'll obviously probably change things up. But for now, feels like this is you ride this out into the end of the regular season and then kind of see where it goes from there.
It's funny, like when I was watching the game against the Pistons on Sunday, we've talked so much about them needing to change the starting lineup, or like that's been like the talk on Twitter. Like when Caleb and Martin, Kyle Lowry were in there, like Caleb's too small to be a 4. Kyle Lowry shouldn't be the starting point guard. The closing lineup was the old starting lineup.
I know.
And that's probably the best closing lineup they have.
Yeah.
You know, with Kyle Lowry and Caleb, with, you know, Tyler, Bam, and Jimmy. It just seems like that's probably going to be the starting lineup of choice now moving forward. So it's just
everyone got what they wanted with the new starting lineup, where it's,
and now they want to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers bear it out, right?
That lineup we said it all year. It's a good starting lineup. Yeah.
A good lineup. So it just seems like we're back to where we were. And that's not a bad thing because, again, like you said, that's one of the better lineups all season.
All right. We can wrap things up there. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. A lot of basketball these days between obviously the end of the NBA regular season and March Madness. You want to do any quick Canes thoughts before we wrap up? You watched any of those games over the weekend?
Yeah,
men's or women's. We can talk either one.
Yeah, I mean,
guess you probably didn't see the women's game last night.
I didn't see the women's game, but I did see that shot, which was insane. But as far as the men's games, yeah, I mean, the first game they looked so great. The second game, they looked awesome. Yeah. And Jim Larrañaga,
one of the best.
I can't believe 2 years ago, like, people were trying to run him out of town. That's incredible. How quickly the narrative has changed. He's definitely the best basketball coach they've had, men's basketball coach they've had there. Easily. He's really turned that program.
I was wondering, is he on the Mount Rushmore of South Florida sports coaches, period? There's a couple on the state, like Shula, Spo, and I'd say Schnellenberger are kind of unassailable.
Riley.
Yeah, and then there's like, do you count Riley? You know, Riley's obviously has been more a GM than a coach. You know, Jimmy Johnson is probably the one that has another case to be the fourth face on that Mount Rushmore.
Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
one day.
And Norchad Omier.
Yeah.
He's like Udonis Haslem almost. Like, he's just like an undersized guy. He's gonna go after every rebound. Like,
very fun college basketball player.
Fun to watch. Like, his effort is incredible. So yeah, just a fun team. You obviously have watched more college basketball than me, a lot more. Do you think they have a shot against Houston?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got a shot. The way I think about it with them is, and I said this when Michelle and I recorded last week, is their offense is so good they can beat anyone. I don't necessarily trust them to win the whole thing because their defense is not good. Yeah. It would be like, basically, you know, to win a national championship, you pretty much have to have like a top 30 or 40 defense in KenPom. Like, I don't know if any team outside that has ever won. Like, it would be pretty much unprecedented for them to win a championship. But they got as much or more talent as Houston, I think, at least top end. Houston's really deep, but, you know, like, Isaiah Wong could be the best player on the floor on any given night.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, Norchad Omier is a fantastic college basketball player. Luga Poplar is like turned into, like, that guy looks like an NBA prospect.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Is he good? Because I know I had to miss that little final few minutes.
Yeah. I think he just bruised his butt or something, but okay. I think he seemed to be okay the other day. So, they're deep. I mean, they go 5 deep now with, like, guys you can get buckets in that starting lineup. Like, there's no one you can just kind of, like, leave alone, which is unusual in college basketball, where most teams have maybe a guy who's just a spot-up shooter and can't do much else, or just a big guy who's in there to rebound and set picks and get garbage buckets. Like, you know, Omier's not a guy you're going to just, like, necessarily throw it to in the post and he's going to, like, be Hakeem Olajuwon, but he's a real threat off the dive and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I've loved watching that team all year long. I always love watching Jim Larrañaga's team. There's another DC area bias because he was awesome at George Mason.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they win this weekend. I had Indiana, and then I had Indiana beating Houston in my bracket, so it's not like I think Houston's invincible.
And FAU? How about FAU? They deserve some love too. Basketball town for sure. I mean, this is like incredible that 1/8 of the teams in the Sweet 16 are from South Florida. Yeah,
it's like South Florida and New Jersey, and like that's it.
It's incredible, and like, you know.
Well, I guess New Jersey's out because Fairleigh Dickinson lost, so down to Princeton.
Yeah, it's a fun time, and the Panthers are doing better. Obviously in the playoff spot right now. Like, WBC has been awesome.
Yeah, I'm bummed. I haven't been able to watch a lot of that because between like the tournament, and games, and like it's just time of year where there's something going on every night. But wish I could be watching more of that. So
definitely keeping all of us busy. So that's good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we've rambled on long enough. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.